In a world that rewards constant communication, incessant sharing, and performative transparency, we have forgotten one of the most powerful tools in human interaction: strategic silence. While everyone else is busy announcing their intentions, broadcasting their thoughts, and revealing their strategies, the truly effective operator knows when to remain silent and uses that silence as a weapon. Niccolò Machiavelli, the 16th century Florentine philosopher and political theorist, understood this principle better than most. Although he is famous for his explicit advice in The Prince, Machiavelli's most potent ideas often pertain to what should remain unsaid. "The vulgar crowd is always taken in by appearances," he wrote, recognizing that discourse creates appearances while silence preserves reality. In an age of overexposure, those who master strategic silence not only protect their position, but accomplish what constant communicators cannot. They win while others are still talking about winning. The cost of unnecessary speech. Machiavelli lived in an era of political intrigue where careless words could lead to exile or execution. But even in our modern, less lethal context, unnecessary speech creates vulnerabilities that silence avoids. Men in general judge more by their eyes than by their hands, Machiavelli observed. Everyone can see, but few can feel. The person who constantly speaks offers everyone opportunities to see and judge, while revealing little about what can truly be felt or known. Every word you speak carries costs that silence does not. Speech creates commitments. When you declare intentions, you bind yourself to them in the eyes of others. If you change course, you appear inconsistent or dishonest. If you remain silent about your plans, you retain the freedom to adapt without the need for explanations or apologies. Speech exposes your thought process and limitations. The more you explain, the more you reveal about how your mind works. Information that others can use to predict, manipulate, or counter you. As Machiavelli observed, the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Similarly, the first method for estimating someone's strategic capability is to listen to how much they unnecessarily reveal. Compulsive speech diminishes your mystique and authority. "It is much safer to be feared than loved," Machiavelli wrote. Fear requires distance, and distance requires a degree of mystery. A leader who explains every decision, justifies every action, and shares every thought becomes ordinary, and the ordinary cannot command the same respect as the extraordinary. Consider how this manifests in modern contexts. The colleague who speaks in every meeting, opining on every topic regardless of expertise, gradually loses impact. The friend who shares every detail of their life on social media becomes predictable instead of interesting. The negotiator who fills uncomfortable silences with concessions loses advantage. The leader who responds to every criticism legitimizes the critics and, in doing so, reduces their own stature. Machiavelli would view our modern compulsion for transparency and constant communication not as authenticity, but as a strategic error, a voluntary surrender of power that provides information to others without receiving equivalent value in return. The three types of strategic silence. Machiavellian silence is not simply the absence of words. It is a deliberate communication strategy that takes different forms depending on the objective. Understanding these types of silence reveals how this approach works in practice. First, silence for gathering information. The wise man does immediately what the fool does in the end. Machiavelli. The fool speaks immediately, revealing his position without learning anything about others. The wise man, on the other hand, remains silent at first, allowing others to expose their thoughts, intentions, and weaknesses before deciding how to respond. This approach creates an asymmetrical information advantage. In negotiations, it manifests in the principle that whoever speaks first loses. In personal relationships, it explains why those who listen more than they speak tend to understand the dynamic better than the chatterbox. In competitions, it shows why those who announce their strategies before executing them often perform below their capabilities. Second, silence for building authority. Machiavelli understood that power depends in part on perception, and perception can be enhanced through calculated silence. A prince must imitate the fox and the lion. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. Part of the fox's cunning lies in knowing when speech diminishes rather than increases authority. A leader who only speaks at significant moments carries more weight than one who intervenes in every minor issue. Someone who only responds to necessary criticisms rather than defending themselves against every accusation projects confidence rather than insecurity. This explains why the most powerful figures in any domain tend to speak less but more deliberately than those beneath them. Third, silence for preserving ambiguity. It is safer to be feared than loved when you cannot achieve both. Machiavelli. This principle extends beyond fear and love, applying to any situation where maintaining multiple interpretations is advantageous. Politicians use it to make vague statements that allow different audiences to hear what they want to hear. Negotiators employ it to avoid clear positions that might restrict potential agreements. Leaders apply it by articulating broad visions without specifying details that could limit their future flexibility. The art of strategic silence, power, influence, and the illusion of transparency. Strategic silence is not a form of deception, but a tool of precision, a recognition that premature clarity often undermines objectives rather than advancing them. In a world where constant expression and immediacy in communication are valued, the ability to remain silent at the right moment has become a sign of true tactical intelligence. The trap of transparency. Modern culture has elevated transparency to the level of an undeniable virtue. We are told that being authentic means expressing ourselves without reservations, sharing our thoughts without filters, and communicating openly and honestly at all times. Be yourself, they advise. Don't hide anything. The truth must always come to light. However, this advice, though seemingly noble, is a dangerous oversimplification of the power dynamic. History, political strategy, and psychology reveal a more complex reality. Excessive transparency not only exposes us, but can also weaken us, binding us to positions, ideas, or commitments that may eventually become obstacles rather than advantages. Machiavelli, with his unwavering realism, understood that influence is rarely achieved through absolute candor. The promise given was a necessity of the past, the broken word a necessity of the present, he wrote, noting that flexibility is essential for those seeking to maintain and expand their power. This statement does not advocate for betrayal or gratuitous deception, but rather acknowledges that information must be managed intelligently. Revealing your intentions too early makes you predictable, and predictability is a disadvantage in any game of power. The danger of permanent exposure. Today, we live in an era where overexposure is the norm. Social media has created a culture of incessant expression where every thought must be shared, every opinion must be voiced, and every emotion must be validated publicly. Those who participate in this dynamic rarely ask themselves, what impact does this level of transparency have on my power and influence? Machiavelli did not suggest that people lie, but that they adopt a posture of selective disclosure. Deciding what to share and what to withhold is a fundamental skill in politics, business, and personal relationships. Never try to win by force what can be won by deception, he wrote. But we could rephrase it in a way more applicable to our era. Never try to win with unnecessary disclosure what can be achieved with strategic silence. The mistake of many is not the lack of expression, but the lack of judgment about when and how to express themselves. At times, simple restraint is more powerful than even the most eloquent speech. In a world where everyone talks, those who know how to listen and measure their words precisely gain an undeniable advantage. The psychology of silence, how mystery increases power. The allure of mystery is not a new phenomenon. Human psychology is designed to find fascinating what is not fully understood. The most influential leaders in history have known how to play with this perception. From emperors to high-level executives, those who master the art of strategic silence generate in others a sense of uncertainty that gives them control over the narrative. When someone remains silent at a crucial moment, they force others to fill the void with assumptions. What are they thinking? What is their real plan? Are they in agreement or disagreement? That uncertainty grants power, because whoever controls the information controls the situation. In negotiation, for example, silence can be a formidable weapon. Experienced negotiators know that after making an offer or presenting an idea, the person who speaks first is usually at a disadvantage. The pressure of the pause creates discomfort in the other party, leading them to reveal more than they initially intended to say. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer stated that most men, instead of thinking, merely judge. Strategic silence plays precisely on this human tendency. Rather than offering an immediate response, it leaves space for others to project their own assumptions, often leading to judgment errors that can be exploited. The cost of speaking too much. How overexpression weakens authority. Absolute transparency can be dangerous because it gives others a detailed map of our intentions, vulnerabilities, and limits. When we reveal too much too soon about what we want or how we plan to get it, we provide our rivals with a roadmap to block us. Skilled politicians understand this intuitively. Electoral promises are often vague because ambiguity allows flexibility. Likewise, business leaders avoid making categorical statements about future strategies because any prediction can become a weapon against them. Even in daily life, those who speak excessively often lose credibility. A leader who constantly expresses their intentions without firm action to back them up ends up seeming indecisive. A professional who divulges too much about their strategies loses their competitive advantage. This is why great strategists, both in politics and business, rarely reveal all their thoughts. They know that at times, silence not only protects, but strengthens. Adopting this approach wisely requires a discipline that is increasingly rare in contemporary culture. It demands the patience to listen, before speaking. The restraint to remain silent even when revealing something is momentarily satisfying, and the strategic cleverness to recognize when silence is more effective than words. These qualities do not arise naturally in a world that rewards constant expression, but they generate advantages precisely because they are rare. The final irony of Machiavelli's silent strategy is that its most successful practitioners remain largely unnoticed. We notice the noisy, the expressive, the transparent, while the masters of strategic silence achieve their objectives without drawing attention to their methods. They remain silent and succeed, while others continue talking about how to win. Perhaps this explains why Machiavelli himself, despite his enormous influence on political theory and strategy, remains widely misunderstood. His name has become synonymous with ruthless manipulation, yet his ideas reveal a deeper understanding of human psychology and power dynamics that goes beyond mere brutality. He understood that influence does not always require strength or deception. Sometimes it's enough to know when to remain silent and let others reveal themselves. In an age of information overload, saturation of opinions, and compulsion to share, Machiavelli's strategy of silence offers a counterintuitive path to influence. Speak less, observe more, reveal cautiously, and let your results speak louder than your words. In the endless competition for attention and power, those who master this approach not only participate, but prevail. We live in a time where information flows without restrictions, where everyone has a platform to express their thoughts, and where the pressure to share is constant. But amid this noise, those who master the art of strategic silence have a significant advantage. Power does not always belong to those who speak the loudest, but to those who speak with intention. Influence is not achieved through reckless transparency, but through careful management of information. Machiavelli understood that power is not just a matter of force or cunning, but also of patience and restraint. In a world where overexpression has become the norm, the ability to remain silent at the right moment is a sign of intelligence, self-control, and true mastery. It is not about hiding the truth or acting with deceit, but understanding that information is a currency of power, and that spending it indiscriminately is wasting it. While many speak endlessly, trying to win with words, true strategists remain silent and observe, building their advantage in the shadows. And when they finally speak, every word counts. Because in the competition for power, respect, and influence, those who master silence not only play the game, they win it.